to Owl and helping us celebrate my mom's life. Wow, this is going to be tough.
Do you want me to come up with you?
If you like.
Okay, it's going to be two of us crying.
A box of tissues. Yeah, thank you. So, for those of you who don't know, I think it was in the 70s, Mom was sometimes hard to buy presents for. So in the 70s, I thought, I don't know how I found out about this Owl rehab place where they take raptors who've been injured.
It was you? Oh.
It was me, yeah. Hi, Dad. So anyway, I got Mom a like an adoption certificate to Audie, who looked very much like the owl behind my good-looking husband over there. And
That was alive. He was alive.
He was. I don't know if that's Audie, but anyway, he was something of an inspiration to Mom to come out here and volunteer. 80% of the birds that they have given to them are actually rehabilitated and released. They have a full surgery in there. They do all kinds of outreach. They take owls and birds to schools and do things here in the schoolroom, education, and also out throughout the Lower Mainland. They'll go anywhere, actually. So that's how Mom got involved. And then eventually, of course, she closed her store, and all of the fixtures came out here. They have a gift store. So, of course, Mom loves to merchandise and buy. So she would buy clothing and merchandise out here. And then the next step was board of directors.
Yes.
And then eventually the president of the board. So she has a long affiliation with Owl, and that's why we decided to celebrate out here. As well, we decided to celebrate in the springtime rather than when, early December. It's kind of a poopy time. This is a time where everything's coming alive. And when she used to drive out here, she would love driving through the countryside and seeing the changes. And spring, of course, is a favorite time. So it seemed really appropriate to celebrate now. And she would have turned 80 on Wednesday. So she didn't quite make 80, but that's all right. So I'm going to share a couple of things with you, and then some dear friends are going to stand up and share for people who are not present. And I encourage you to do that if you wish. If you're not at all comfortable with that, there's no pressure to do that. Some people are gregarious and like to share stories, and so I'm going to start that off. And we're working on coffee right now, so hopefully you guys got enough to eat, but there's going to be a little bit of coffee in about a half an hour. And there's also a bird that's been rehabilitated and is from this area, and Bobo's going to release it later on. So that'll probably be in about 40 minutes or so. Do you guys want to have a sit?
Okay, you're good
Thank
now?
you.
Okay, she's good now.
Just got over the early.
Woohoo.
That's Dad, Sister Cheryl, the one who has most of the photographs, because of course the first child always gets more photographs. So what did I miss? Oh yes.
True, Matt?
Did you see all the pictures of Matt too, and not Will?
So some of you would have known that on May the 1st, when Mom was born, she liked to say a phrase. Does anybody remember this phrase? Say it with me. Hooray, hooray! It's the 1st of May. Outdoor screwing starts today. This phrase is telling of many aspects of Mom. Someone who loved the physicality of life and also the pleasures it can bring. But it also shows her mischievous and humorous side. As you can see from some of the photos, we love the outdoors. We had a great growing up, and we were always outdoors. Mom was an avid fisher person, and in her own right, a naturalist. So I come by it naturally. She was full of life, and at this time of year, as I said, with things coming alive and blooming, it seemed really right to do this now. So Mary T, as most of you know her, and T stands for, anybody know Mary T? Trewin, which is her family name, or one of her family names, Trewin Lockwood. For those of you that knew her in the clothing store days, Trewin was the name of her retail clothing store. So Mary T engaged life head on. She was not afraid of trying new things, and as a result, she was not only a wife, mother, grandmother, faithful and devoted friend. She was also a performer. This is a picture of her doing tap dance. If you guys didn't know she was a performer, think about all the time she liked to hold court. So she loved to tap dance, and she did theatrical plays up until her early 20s when she moved from the Maritimes to Montreal for work. So she was a performer. She was also an athlete. How many people here played tennis or some badminton or some kind of sport with her? Look at all those hands go up. Many of you who are her peers are also great athletes in your own right. She was also a coach. There's a couple of people here that she actually had as a coach, either as a mentor in life or a coach on a badminton court or something. There you go, there's a couple of hands there. Her reach is, she's also an event organizer, so I come by this naturally. She did many, many things that required project planning and management, including the Pan Am Games. Dad, do you remember when that was? That was in the 70s?
Yeah, early 70s.
I was just really little then, of course. And so she would drag us to all of these events, and I got to know how a competitive ladder works for badminton things and how to organize the Pan American Games in Canada. I was always the runner, so it becomes naturally for me to do this. Mom was also a personal trainer. We don't have anybody? We don't have any. She trained you? Okay, yes. Personal trainer?
No.
There's a picture of, she was at Hollyburn Country Club.
I think it's over.
It's circulating, okay. So Diane Pearson and Lisette Walker, who Rhonda's going to speak on behalf of, and Carolyn later, they got to know Mum at Hollyburn Country Club, and I think they woke up at, I don't know, Mum would get up at 5 o'clock and be there, and they'd do a training session in the morning, and then she'd come home and do stuff, and then there was another one in the evening, and she did this for a couple of years, hey Dad? Just making people run up and downstairs. It was awesome. And she was also an entrepreneur. I told you about the store, but the store was actually kind of the last step on a long history of merchandising events. Now this friend Lisette, sometimes Mum would hear of clothing that needed to be liquidated or something, so they would just throw up a couple of signs in a warehouse neighborhood and say, sale on here. So that's how it started. And then they would package up stuff. I remember Lisette going to Bowen Island, and they had some kind of like quick-made shop there and sold stuff. And also in the house, kind of before home parties, kind of around, home parties for Tupperware. Well, now it's a common thing. So she was also a entrepreneur and merchandiser. And there's a couple of people in the room who can talk to her merchandising talents. She was very artistic, so she liked to put things together in an aesthetically pleasing way. And of course she was a businesswoman. So she tried her hand at many, many things. Board of director, as I said, and champion of many, many causes. Now, some of you might, when you looked around the corner there and saw the food and then all of these plastic bags, go, what the heck's going on there? Well, I would if I didn't know. Well, Mum would gather towels and blankets, and she'd take them to OWL or Horse Rescue, or Bonnie Lily had an animal, cat and dog, home placement. She was always doing these kind of things. And so that's why there's all those bags, and there's people like Mum. Champion of many, many causes, and there are so many stories. She liked to help the underdog, and sometimes she just liked to give somebody an ear that needed it. And at bingo halls and other places, there's lots of folks that she would just listen to their stories or give them a little bit of encouragement. And that's when Mum was happiest, is when she was helping other people. So I'm going to tell you a couple of stories that I'm going to share, kind of to open up the floor. And then Rhonda, if you would come up. And Rhonda's kind of like an extended family, is Lisette, Ron, and of course Rhonda and your niece. Yes. All of them moved back east, but they are part of our family, and you'll hear why, but definitely close to our heart. So it's important that you tell their story if you can. And so after that, then Carolyn's going to stand up and share what Diane, longtime friend, wanted to say but couldn't be here. So here's my stories. This is typical of Mum. When I was 19, after Christmas, I went to Australia for a year, as so many kids did right after high school. At Easter, as always, Mum sent me a package. We did Easter eggs. Well, we did them up until a few years ago, right guys? So I got a package that had a Purdy's egg in it, but you know what else she put in there? Okay, I was 19. I'd been in Australia on my own. She put birth control pills in there. She went to my doctor and got them, and I didn't need them at the time, but you know, that's mum. She's wise and was no nonsense. And then when I was in 24 living in Toronto, she came to visit. I thought I needed to go to the big city to establish myself because I was following a career in fashion at that time. And that's where all the clothing that was made in Canada, in Canada, all came from Montreal. So she came to visit, and Dad was there as well. But things hadn't been going terribly well for about 2 years I was there, and I was also kind of checking up with a nice boy with a big heart that would not have provided very well for me. After visiting for a couple of days when we were alone together, she just simply said, "So are you ready to come home?" And I said yes, and within 24 hours, Allied Moving Vans was taking everything with it. As I said, Mum was happiest when she was helping others. Her reach was far, from Owl Care, or the Towels to Horse Rescue, or Sage Transition House. I forgot about that one. That's why it's good to write these things down. Book a fundraiser for cats or dogs, or for folks at Starship. Come on in!
Come on, Loretta.
Oh, Loretta! Thank goodness.
You missed your picture. You're in one.
There's a spot right there for you, love.
Sorry.
Not a problem. So, as I said, the folks at Starship Bingo, sometimes people needed a little hug or a sympathetic ear. Mum loved the thrill of a win, whether it be tennis or bingo. She was never mean-spirited, and she never saw blind sides or expected bullies, but she got her fair share. She saw the best in everyone and just could not understand why people would be cruel or unkind, because it was the farthest thing from her mind. It always took her by surprise. And you know what? She never ever once left me hanging or said I can't make it. She was reliable, true. She was reliable, true, and loving, and only wanted to be loved in return. She provided a remarkable and memorable childhood. And the things that make me a good human, I learned mostly from her. So thank you for being here today, and thank you for being a part of